Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Reality Is. My name is Alysha.
And my name is Sanjana.
And just before the show starts, we'd like to let viewers know that the values that are expressed on the show do not represent the values or opinions of Close Look Productions. They're our values and ours alone. And with that being said, let's get started with the show.
Yay, finally.
Yeah, I know, finally. We're saying finally because we're all new at this podcast and the show. And, just getting the right angles and the lighting, it took a while. And I think our guest speaker can attest to that today as well. Right, Sukhpal?
Yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah, so we're really excited to start our first show and have a bit of a structure going.
Yeah, so I think we have a very special guest for today. I think we already mentioned his name, but we have Sukhpal coming on our show.
Yeah, so he is, I've known him for a couple years now, and he is a university student who is currently studying psychology. He's also really interested and passionate about positive psychology, which is basically, in a nutshell, the study, the research that's put behind, wellness, health, happiness, optimal happiness. So putting things into place in your life that is going to touch upon happiness and what it means to live a happy life. So I feel like that is a really good topic to touch upon.
Oh, for sure. Especially in high school, we really need to address this kind of thing and really teaching people from a young age how to live a better life and not to compare yourself to other people.
Right.
I think we should leave it up to Sukhpal to really give us the rundown about positive psychology and everything he's put in so much effort towards. So
right, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many things that are involved with happiness, and I think that in our society, high school especially, we're really bogged down by the materialistic aspects of life. But if you stay tuned, you continue watching the show, you kind of get a bit of a taste of what's out there, and keep an open mind about things.
Yeah, for sure, exactly, because high school isn't easy, but I think if you have a good positive mindset that you can utilize, you can use it even when you're an adult and actually survive high school.
Right, and life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get Sukhpal on the show. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back. So we have a new guest here. Hey, it's Sukhpal. And Sanjana's gone, so we kind of replaced Sanjana with a adult man. So she is in the studio audience, and she will be listening in on us and providing her reactions and moving the show forward. So let's get into it. I'm so excited. I was supposed to have this gentleman on the show yesterday, but I'm so happy to have you on the show as our first guest.
Thank you.
You're kind of our guinea pig, so. So this is Sukhpal. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So basically, I'm a psychology major. I run an Instagram page regarding positive psychology. So basically, what got me into positive psychology was I always knew I wanted to do psychology, but I could never find a particular field that really resonated with me personally. But that was until I took a community psychology class, and it was related to positive psychology.
Right.
So that's when I really started to see, the value in knowing community psychology and positive psychology and how I can use this to help other people.
Right.
And that's what really started me into researching into how can I create a better lifestyle for others, which of course led to me creating my Instagram page for that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, and there's so many branches of psychology, and a lot of times it's so far-fetched, it's so abstract, we can't even apply it into our lives. And for someone that actually did a psychology degree and follows Sukhpal's page, there's a lot of stuff that you can apply in your lives right away. I think that's what also resonates with you, me, and anyone who's into positive psych. So with positive psych in mind, can you maybe give a little bit of a dummy's definition to what this is?
So basically, positive psychology, the study of it, is basically how can we implement habits into people's lifestyles that will boost their well-being. That's basically the simplest form. And positive psychology ties into community psychology, which also kind of, talks about how we can create an environment for people to thrive in, not just, just go by for a mundane lifestyle, but actually increase their well-being and live a better lifestyle. So that's why positive psychology and community psychology tie into one another. So that's important to know.
Right. I think so. The structure of today's show, Sanjana, you want to maybe explain a little bit of the structure of the show?
Yeah. So today we're going to actually have a fun game.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. Yay.
We have to be excited. It took a while, but we have a rapid fire game. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sukhpal's going to be asking us some questions. Luckily, not both of us at the same time, or else Alysha would definitely beat me on this one. Yeah, so he'll be asking us some questions and just really testing our knowledge on these topics and kind of breaking any misconceptions about them with the hardcore facts.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's actually, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about a theory that's very prominent. We should have probably mentioned this before, but kind of like the focus of today's show is social comparison, which is basically comparing yourselves to others, other peers, colleagues, people we see in the news and social media. And that's like a very prominent thing in our lives, whether you are in elementary school or you're, in the elderly range. I think that happens to all of us in some sense. So let's talk a little bit about social comparison. So Sanjana and I get a bit of a taste of what it is, and maybe don't look like fools when we're answering these questions.
All right. So basically with social comparison theory, it kind of talks about how, it's never enough, basically. Like, we're always wanting something more, right? So I took a positive psychology class, and they really my professor really talked about this a lot, about how we're always striving for something, but once we get there, it's like we enjoy it for a bit, but then we want something more. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's never enough. So it's always creating this never-ending chase for something that's always far out ahead, which of course is going to create problems, especially with your mental health, right? And furthermore, we're always not just always chasing something, but always looking at what, someone else might have, or, oh, maybe I used to have this, or now I want this. And you know what I mean? It's always this sort of comparison game going around. Right. And some people think that, they might not be prone to it because, I don't really go on social media or, kind of stuff like that. But it's like, it can happen in anywhere, like at any level. It can happen in schools. It can happen on the street. It can happen on TV when you watch TV. It can happen, in a variety of places. And I will be talking about studies that relate to social comparison later on. Right. But yeah, that's basically the gist of what social comparison is.
Okay, great. So there's a lot of components to it. I'm not going to go into it because we are both learners. And we're going to, we will figure it out right now during our rapid fire round how much we know about this topic. Okay, let's do it. So, I guess you will ask the questions to each person. Address who you're asking. We have 10 seconds to come up with a reply. It's okay if it's wrong. Like, it's okay. I'm probably going to be wrong. And that's to show the audience as well that if you do come on the show, it's not about being right, being correct, being accurate. It's about, hey, I'm wrong. This is why you're wrong, and let's figure this out. So we're going to do 10 seconds, and let's see how this goes. Okay. Okay, let's start the rapid fire round. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so Alysha, our minds think in terms of completion. Is that true or false?
True.
That's wrong.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Sanjana's next. Okay, so if you're not conscious of the content you consume on social media, it does not affect you. True or false?
False. True. False. All of the above.
Which one is?
False.
Okay, you got that one right.
Okay, good job.
All right, the next one for Alysha. The only way to prevent social comparison is to delete social media. True or false?
Ooh, that was tricky. The only way to prevent social media comparison. Oh my God, this is actually nerve-wracking.
Come on, you're running out of time, bud.
I'm gonna say false.
Yeah,
false?
You got that right.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so the next one.
I had 1 second left too. Okay, anyways.
The next one's for Sanjana. So in a study, males found that pictures of models they looked at pictures of models and later found that their own spouses looked less appealing than before, like less attractive. Why do you think that is?
Go.
Aging. Okay. I guess it's just social comparisons, and I guess social comparisons getting influenced by external circumstances.
Yeah. No. That's pretty good.
I just wanted
yeah. No. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a pretty good explanation.
Not terrible.
All right, so the next one is for Alysha, and that's the last one.
I think the buzzer's a little subjective.
There is an X amount of money that will make people feel fulfilled.
Ooh.
True or false?
There's an X amount of money that will make people... I'm going to say false.
Yes, you are right.
I'm right? Okay.
Damn it.
Damn it, it's a competition.
Damn. I didn't know it's a competition. And this is it. That was our first game on this show. Good job, everybody.
Amazing.
No, that was awesome. I loved how it went. Yeah, thank you so much for being a good sport. So let's kind of maybe quickly just go over the answers real quickly, just to let viewers know, the answers to these questions.
All right. So for the first one, our minds think in terms of completion. Alysha said that was true. Am I correct?
I said it was true.
The reason why that's false is because, like I mentioned before, the gist of what social comparison is that, there's always something more to strive for. There's always something out there that someone can always get, right? And a good example of this is a study I can mention. So in one study, what they found was that people who made $75,000 a year tend to say that, oh, I'd be happier if I made $125,000 a year. People who made $200,000 a year, said that they'd be happy if they made $300,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of see where this is going, right? And furthermore, like studies show that people on average tend to want 1.5 times their average wage. So like, that's for like the population as a whole. People tend to want always more than what they already make. Mm-hmm. So since we see that, that's an obvious example of social comparison, how our minds don't think in terms of completion, but always to reference points of like, what does that person make?
Oh, I get it now. Okay. So basically completion is just like, I got it, or like, I want it, I got it, and done.
And done, yeah.
But now instead of that, it is like, I got it, but when you get that thing, it's like kind of like your environment or your situation changes or your values change. Mm-hmm. So then you want more and more and more. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So like to make another example out of that is like, okay, let's say if I want a Louis Vuitton belt, and then that's going to make me so happy, right? But once I get the Louis Vuitton belt, my new reference point is now designer belts. So I'm not going to go settle for a wall. Like, this is a tendency, of course, right? Yeah. I'm not going to settle for like a Walmart brand belt. Now it's like, oh, I got a Louis Vuitton belt, so now I got to get other designer belts.
Yeah, totally.
And then I create like this whole collection of designer items because that's become my new reference point.
And it makes you devalue kind of what you already have because you're looking for better or something different. Mm-hmm. Let's go. Okay, let's continue on with the rest of the questions. Okay, so we're not going to go through all of them, just a couple of them. So the next one that we want to talk about is, if you are not conscious of the content that you're consuming on social media, it does not affect you. So Sanjana was given that question, and she got it right. And she said false. So
got that right.
Yeah, so she got it right. So basically that means that we do get affected, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, why did you think that?
So I thought like subconsciously, like even when you just like are meeting with different people, or I guess like you interact with so many people in your day, or you watch so many people on TV, and it's hard not to feel like you're not enough because you see people's highlights and you see the good things that people
their vacations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're like, damn, I really wish I went on that vacation too, or I wish I won a certain award. Honestly, me all the time, just like wanting that award. But yeah, so I feel like even if you don't think about it too much, it's still placed on your mind.
Yeah, in the background, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a very good point because in the positive psychology class that I took with Dr. Lori Santos, she talked about how, people that tend to watch more TV than others usually think that, that they're more poor than like the general population, for example. Yeah. That was a very interesting study that we looked at, and I was like, wow, that's actually says a lot about, TV.
Maybe because of commercials, or because if they're watching TV.
Not necessarily just the commercials, though. They also monitor, what kind of shows they're watching.
Okay,
kind of
got
like
it.
So for other variables as well.
The show itself, what they're showing, right?
And another study too that also speaks on, what kind of stuff can influence you on social media is that they had two separate groups. So One group was just going through, the regular social media feed, but then they manipulated the other groups of social media feed to show more like negative stuff, I guess you could say. Like it wasn't like drastically like super, super bad, but like it was, enough to like, just show like some bad news and whatnot. And they found that the people that had the social media feed that had the, the bad news and stuff on it, those people tend to report a lower sense of well-being because of, what's on their feed. So that was actually an experimental study which shows great validity to, causation of, what you consume actually does affect your mental health, whether you're conscious of it or not.
Yeah, and these studies, like when you find out the outcome of it, it's pretty common sense. But the thing is like research still needs to be done on these kind of topics because they're subtle, because they're on our subconscious. Like those are things that you can't really like, you can't research because you definitely need to put in the effort. You need to put in, time to actually like delve into the truth of it. So a lot of times I feel like psych studies are really like, oh yeah, I knew that, but did you really do you know how much it's really affecting you, or that kind of thing? So
and the research that you pointed out really like, I guess it depicts like it's so easy for us to become like victims of like external circumstances or the things that we like, simple things that we interact with on a day-to-day basis actually has such a huge influence on our mind.
Yeah. Oh, totally. We are a sponge. Like, that's really what we are at the end of the day. Okay. I think, do you want to do one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
The only way to prevent social comparison is to delete social media. I think, Alysha, that was yours?
Yeah, I got it right. I said that it's not the only way to prevent, to prevent social comparison. Yeah, just because I feel like there's other ways that, like, of course, social media is such a big part of our lives, and like if you delete it, like, yeah, that's awesome. Like you are away from a lot of the BS that's that are on our screens. But then there's other ways in our lives that social comparison comes up. So if you're like off social media, like, okay, that's healthy, but are you also healthy in other realms of your life, like with your peers, in school, at work? So you really need to like look into all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't go away if you just delete your Instagram account.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it's like often we hear like this crusade on social media, like, oh, social media is so bad, you shouldn't go on social media and this and that. But what people don't understand is that we should limit our consumption of it rather than just get rid of it completely, because social media does have its benefits, right? We can interact with other people, we can learn new things, right? So we don't necessarily have to just cut it off completely. Like, how about changing who you follow, right?
Yeah.
That's a big thing, because if you follow a lot of celebrities, for example, that's likely to have a negative impact on your mental health, right? How about just lower who you follow, and just, if there's certain people that you can't unfollow for some reason because, they're your family member or something, you can always mute their account, right?
Yeah,
like, as harsh as it
really
sounds,
want to.
Yeah, there's always ways around it, right? But try to limit your social media consumption rather than just cut it off completely, because there still are uses to social media.
Yeah, totally.
And what kind of accounts do you recommend? Because you mentioned that you can follow maybe more like positive influences and stuff. Like, what kind of things would you recommend?
Well, there's definitely self-help pages out there. I feel like depends on what kind of platform you're looking at, right? Like on Instagram, I know there's definitely a good amount. On Twitter, I have found some, but they don't really tweet as often, so I wouldn't find that as helpful. But when it comes to your Instagram, try to keep it to, your family, and like just pages that can be uplifting. Like, it doesn't mean that you can't follow a celebrity at all. If it's just like your favorite actor or something like that, if they're just showing like their normal mundane life, like, that's okay. But if constantly when you're seeing these people's pictures, they're showing like for example, like there was this one boxer I used to follow, but I unfollowed him because he'd always show like big stacks of cash, and like I just kind of found it like kind of pointless, right? Like, it felt weird, and it's just like, well, like, obviously you make that like comparison, like, oh, am I not doing enough in my life and all that kind of stuff, because you'd be like, oh, he's my age and like he's done all this,
you
and
can't help but to compare.
Yeah, exactly. You can't help but to compare, right? So you really have to
Yeah.
watch who you follow, even if they are a celebrity. What kind of content are they posting? Are they posting content that negatively affects you, or are they posting content that doesn't really have a bad effect on your mental health? You also have to weigh, right, the pros and cons. So
Yeah, I think like for me personally, I like to have a mix of both. So I do have like celebrities who are like, I don't know, showing off what they have. But then the next story is like, I don't know, like immigrant brown family stories and like just like, you know, being grateful for their roots. And so I literally will go back and forth between like, oh my gosh, this person's on a plane, to wow, what a humbling story. I'm so grateful to be here and all. So it's a mix, right? But just to be aware of it too. So so sorry, you were gonna say something, Sanjana?
No, that really like ties in with like something that I like strongly agree with is like high school and just I guess the feeling that you're not enough and then that constant need to find like external fulfillment because you're not finding that internally.
So like in terms of high school, because I mean we've all been there. I'm not gonna say how long ago that was for me. But now I'm making myself really old. But I guess it's just in terms of like your peers, what you see in the hallways. I also think like, especially in a public school setting, what people are wearing. So seeing what other people are, how they're dressed, you know, things like that. I always feel like there's a little bit of a hierarchy. I know things like are very casual. They can be very casual in high school. But if you're someone who does have a low socioeconomic status, you can't help but to think about that. It might not be a big deal for most people, but for some people, it's actually a huge thing. And they might think that thus comparing themselves to other people is very unhealthy. But yeah, let's actually move our conversation more towards kind of correcting the issue of social comparison. I think one thing that really resonates with me, and just talking in terms of social comparison, is resetting your reference points. So could you maybe touch a little bit upon that?
All right, so basically, just to talk about this, you know, resetting reference points, like I'm not, just because I know about social comparison and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't mean that, you know, I'm immune to it. Like by no means is that the case, because I myself am a sneakerhead. So if you're not familiar with the term, is like I collect shoes, and that.
Wait, what term?
Sneakerhead.
Oh, sneakerhead. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, you know, I collect shoes, and like, you know, there's always more shoes that I want, and you know, of course, that's part of, you know, social comparison itself. So one smart way to, you know, kind of combat that is, you know, concretely re-experiencing something. So let's say I have like 20 pairs of shoes. That's just for an example, right? What you can do is you can take away your new pairs of shoes and just put them away for a while, like put them in your closet, for example. Take out your old pair of shoes that you used to wear before, you know, you became a quote-unquote sneakerhead. And then try to wear those shoes and see how long you can last in those shoes before you start missing your shoes that you took for granted. That's something that we can actually do to combat social comparison, by concretely re-experiencing something.
Okay,
you know, that's very important.
So it's called concrete re-experience.
Yeah, concretely re-experiencing.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Another one is interrupting your consumption. Sanjana actually talked about this earlier. Is like, you know, being grateful for something. Like let's say, you know, I'm eating a bowl of ice cream, for example. How about stopping it and just being grateful that, you know what, I'm enjoying this good chocolate ice cream. As cliche or corny as it might sound, but like it actually works according to research. So like being grateful for what you actually have, really thinking about it, reflecting on it. So that's also very important. And lastly, increasing your variety. So, you know, usually we have like our routines and everything, like, oh, I go to gym this time of the day, I read this time of the day, and I play sports this time of the day.
Right.
But how about increasing our variety? How about switching up our schedule, doing something rather earlier in the day and doing something later in the day? Or let's say if you eat a certain type of food every single day, how about changing that from every day to like once every 4 days and trying a different food in place of that? So that also helps reset your reference points, right? What people don't understand is that you don't always have to be experiencing something good. So you don't always have to, you know, chase like that new shoe or that new food or something like that. It's okay to, you know, have like, you know, some mundane food that you don't really like. It's
Ooh, that's a good
yeah,
point.
Because people always like, I don't want to make a generalization, but people tend to fall into the trap of, you know, we always have to experience the highs, but you know, sometimes they're just not necessarily the lows, but like the averages or like the whatevers. So we don't have to always run away from that and always try to go for the highs.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, Instagram. I think that people are always posting their highs, the good moments, like the glamorous moments. And then if you're looking at it through your low, obviously you're going to feel like crap, right? But then you don't know what they're experiencing or who they're comparing to, right? So yeah, so basically concrete re-experience, help me remember this, Sanjana. Concrete re-experience, variety in lifestyle. gratitude. What else?
Avoiding social comparison.
Avoiding social comparison.
Mhm.
And resetting your reference points.
Wow.
Which is,
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And I feel this all just really kind of like humbles you and like you start to, I guess, like
Slow it down.
acknowledge the good things in your life and let that like kind of, I guess you can self-sustain on that kind of positive energy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah.
to go throughout your day and not have to rely on what other people think of you or what social media dictates you should do.
Yeah.
Most kind of
That's
things.
great. That's great.
Mhm.
Well, I think this is a really good conversation. I think it's needed, especially if it's such a subconscious thing
Mhm.
that we don't really think about, but is apparently everywhere around us. But to end it, Sukhpal, plug.
So basically, you can find me on Instagram at Positivity Proximity, and on that page, I post a lot of peer-reviewed research. So those who don't know what peer-reviewed research is, it's basically research done by experts in the field, and it's reviewed by other experts to make sure that they found this type of research through like valid means, like the study wasn't flawed or anything like that. And I feel like this is very valid because oftentimes I see people on social media post stuff that's not really done by experts. Like, let's say there's some sort of psychology, claim or something like that. But
Right.
it's important that we reference where we're getting our information from and cite it. So we're not just, making up content. And that's something that really motivated me to make this psychology page, is to show, hey, this is what the experts are saying. But, a lot of these articles, people don't want to read through pages of what a study says. So that's why I made my page, so I can, read through all the pages and all that stuff, come to a conclusion of what the experts say about what can make your life better, and then I share it to the general audience through
Right.
Instagram, an
Right.
easy platform. So that's really motivated me to create that page. So it's at Positivity Proximity on Instagram.
Perfect. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So before we sign off, is there anything anyone would like to say to close off? I'm like forcing you guys to end this.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like people need to look at more reputable resources for their information because, I don't know, or else people just get persuaded by wrong things.
Mhm.
Again, like
Yeah.
going back to like social media and seeing people's highs or just
Mhm.
gaining like wrong information that influences you. So
Yeah,
thank you for
absolutely.
doing what
Yep.
you do.
Yeah, thank you for doing what you do and being you and your amazing posts on Positivity Proximity. I follow him, so I guess I'm helping you out there.
I will follow.
Yeah, and that does it for us.
Mhm.
Please, our viewers, follow us on The Reality Is Show on Instagram. If you want to be a part of this show, please reach out to us. You can be on this show discussing these amazing topics. If you have a topic in mind that you would like to discuss or for us to discuss, please let us know. And also, let us know what you like about the show and what you particularly do not like. That would be some really good information.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you could be a community member, or you could be like Sukhpal here and like give us
Drinking out of his mini bomb-ass glass.
Special water.
My special water.
Only for our,
A limited
guests,
time.
you know? Not for us.
Okay, well, let's sign off. Thank you so much
Thank you.
to Sukhpal, Sanjana,
Thank you for having me
myself, and the viewers themselves. And I hope you all enjoy your day.
Yes. See you on Thursdays at 6 p.m.